the only way to be sure.
Until the rest world in a month from now, this Hollywood picture is gonna give you what you want. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Inside Your Screen, and I am here with Brendan Horgan and Michael Prime. Before we get into Coming to America, I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to the fact that today is International Women's Day. To my metaphorical left, it's everyone's favorite patriarchal oppressor, Mike Prime. How you doing, Mike?
I take great offence by that, but I'm going to stop there.
You're meant to. That's the point. When it's us three all on at the same time, I have to take the piss out of you both before I kind of get into things. So yeah, did you do anything special for your special lady today, Mike?
I made my own dinner.
I love the way you said that. It was like such a kind of accomplishment as well. I made my own.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm happy now.
Yeah, but notice Mike didn't say he made her dinner.
No, that's another thing as well.
For himself.
I made my own dinner at this allocated time, and that was it. Okay, and to my metaphorical right, someone who wouldn't know what to do with a strong woman if she came and sat on her face is Brendan Horgan. How you doing, Brendan?
I'm good, thank you, Tony.
Have you done anything today for your special woman?
Yeah, I watched Oprah Winfrey.
the Helen the Markle what are the names?
No, not that episode.
Helen Markle.
Who's Helen Markle? I don't know who Helen Markle. I don't know where I got Helen from.
No,
Who's Helen?
I watched a different episode of Oprah Winfrey because it's International Women's Day and she is the queen of women.
Oh, so you just like watching Oprah repeats and stuff like that?
No, just one episode.
Oh, okay.
It was the Tom Cruise episode.
Ah, the one where he kind of goes a bit. Yeah.
No, a different one.
Oh, okay. Whenever you say the Tom Cruise episode, I just think of him jumping up on the sofa and doing all that shenanigan.
No, that was on Ellen.
Oh, no, it was Oprah, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Coming to America. And you see what they did with that title in itself? They took away the letters and they replaced it with a number, just to let you know that it's a sequel. Coming to America. So guys, I'm going to open up straight away. What were your thoughts? Mike?
I'm going to take the lead here. So I think I've expressed on our chats before, there are some films that should not be touched and should not be gone back to. The Goonies, I was very adamant that Ghostbusters should not have been touched again. I refuse to still watch the sequel to that. Back to the Future being one of them. And Coming to America is very high up on my list of that. So, I mean, it's maybe a bit wrong of me, but I went into it with that kind of mindset anyway.
So you went in with your kind of your perception of it was narrow anyway, sort of thing. You were going in eyes kind of wide open, knowing that you might be disappointed.
Yes.
And were you disappointed?
Right. I will say this now. So I watched it. To some extent, I enjoyed it. But the way I kind of judge a lot of films that come with a special IP, and I apply this to things like Alien, to things like Transformers, you can enjoy the film is one thing, but if you took away the IP of that film, would it still be a good story?
Would it still stand on its own legs? Yeah.
For me, this was horrendous if you take away the long-standing affiliation for the story and the characters.
Well, let's get into that, and then we'll get to you, Brendan, there. So for a second, we'll just kind of, if everyone, this is going to be a spoiler review, by the way. So if you haven't watched Coming to America, then maybe watch it, come back, and then we'll kind of go from there. But the storyline is essentially if John Landis's 1988 original was a coming-of-age journey, the sequel starts by being invested in telling the story of fatherhood. So basically, Eddie Murphy plays Prince Akeem, who now becomes King Akeem when his father, Akeem Jaffe, played by James L. Jones, is on his deathbed, and essentially finds out that he has an illegitimate son. So when he went to America in the original film, there's a kind of a segment that we weren't aware of during a time where he's essentially date raped.
Yeah, he's
You know, that'll be something that we come across in later on. And he's the father of a bastard child. So there's a kind of neighboring despot general, General Izzy, played by a kind of scene chewing Wesley Snipes, who wants his son to wed Akeem's oldest daughter, because Prince Akeem has got 3 daughters, and obviously there's this very kind of running theme that, you know, tradition in the kind of that, you know, the male shall rule supreme. So I suppose this does go a little bit into our International Women's Day kind of theme a little bit as well. So yeah, he basically thinks that by getting a son that will kind of answer all his problems, he'll get friendly with Wesley Snipes, and he'll train his heir to basically know the ways of the commanding there. That's the basic general outline. But then later on, it does become a very dot by dot, play by play numbers of the original film. So Brendan, going to go to you now. What were your thoughts? What do you think? Yeah, hit me.
Well, I was very much the same as Mike. Kind of didn't want this to ever be made. Had to watch it because, you know, you had to watch it. But I think the worst thing about, I'll start off with saying that Coming to America was probably I think I mentioned this to Mike off air, but it was one of like my first favorite films as a kid. I think a big part of that was because it was one of those movies, for whatever reason, that at a really young age, my parents allowed me to watch, even though there was swearing in it. And maybe they just didn't realize, or well, they definitely realized. But as a young kid, that swearing kind of added an awful lot of humor, and it kind of made kind of a big chunk of that what was so important to my childhood, because it was almost like, you know, I was allowed to get away with watching this movie. I'm almost certain this is the first movie I ever recorded onto VHS from it being on television.
Oh, like it was a blank VHS cassette, and you're like, yeah, this is being recorded now.
I might be wrong, but I'm almost certain it's the first movie, specifically a movie that was like, I need to have this on VHS so I can watch it anytime I want, and recorded it off the TV. And it was just a classic movie that really does bring me back to my childhood. It was one of the first. And this was what I went in the same kind of mind frame as Mike. I have to be completely honest. I kind of went in not expecting much. But I did have one thing that I wanted to take away from it. And it was just like, please make me laugh.
Yeah.
Even if it's once, I just want to have one belly laugh, like to bring me back to my youth. And the first film, you don't have to be a kid. You can watch it now and it's still, there are certain scenes that have aged, but there are certain scenes that are still absolutely piss your pants hilarious. I watched the barbershop scene where they're discussing boxing probably weekly, because it's just a classic scene, right? And I went into this just hoping it made me laugh, and there wasn't one point in the whole film where I laughed, and I'm even talking like even a half giggle. There were moments that made me smile, so I will be on it, but the most of those moments that made me smile were just pure nostalgia. Hey, here's the barbershop guys again. Hey, here's Randy Watson. Hey, you know, here's another character. You know, it was just kind of that nostalgia piece of, hey, here's the old characters and here's how they are now.
Well, there seems to be
probably my favorite scene in the whole film, just because I always loved in the first film, was the whole McDowell's piss take with McDonald's and the way he used to get away with the copyright. So I did like the McBlurry, or I forget what it was. That scene made me smile when it was like when McDonald's tried to
I don't know. That kind of
was like, you know what the difference is? We put the toppings at the bottom. But the thing is, it didn't actually make me laugh. It made me smile. Yeah. But that was probably my favorite scene in the whole kind of film. But it was just, it's really, really generic family film. This should never have been a PG-13. I'll be totally honest. I didn't realize until about, I don't know how long I was in, but I did check when I was about maybe 20 minutes in to see, and it was like, oh, right, it's a PG-13, hence why there's no swearing in this film. But for me, yeah, it was a really big letdown, really disappointing.
Well, you kind of mentioned as well the nostalgia factor, and I think, like, you know, we're kind of coming kind of 30, 40 odd years. There's a lot of films, obviously, that have been retconned or remade or re-imaged kind of thing, and a lot of franchises are going through that, and this is one of them. What I found quite interesting at one point in the movie, when Lavelle, who is Eddie Murphy's son, in this, he goes back to Zamunda sort of thing, and he's basically getting into a heartfelt relationship with the royal groomer, Boboto, and there's a kind of meta sort of talk that they're having. They're talking about like American films, and they question like, if something's good, why ruin it? And like they kind of say, like, they're talking about like, and it's basically in your face. The writers know, right? You know, they know that what they're doing is kind of just jumping on the bandwagon sort of thing. It shouldn't be done. But it's kind of stuff like that kind of makes you, it's the kind of fourth wall breaking that is like, that's meant to be funny, but I just didn't find it funny. And there was a lot of, as I said, like paint by numbers sort of style. Yeah, you said as well, like this seemed like a family film. It didn't seem like the kind of raw kind of Eddie Murphy that we've known back in the day. And I guess my question to you both, and I know probably the answer is going to be though, but I mean, was there any point in making this film? Like, no one was really demanding it. It just kind of seemed to come out of nowhere. Do you think it was worth it?
Right. So for me personally, having watched it, should it have been made? Even now, probably not. I can see why it was. And I still, even at this point, think that it could have been done successfully. But they had to be true to what it was. And while I understand you can't, obviously, a lot of the jokes are just not appropriate anymore, which obviously they even make reference to in the barbershop scene in this again, about how they got it all out of the system in the 80s and things that they can't do now.
Yeah.
It could have been done so much better. And Brendan touched on it. I remember it was the weekend, I was sitting down with the missus to watch this, put it on, pause it just before we started, just to make sure we had everything ready, snacks, drinks, wines, etc. And I saw that it said, did it say PG-13 or 12 or whatever it was on Amazon? And I said, how can you have a legitimate Eddie Murphy film without the word fuck? Let's be honest. I'm not talking about Dr. Dolittle. We're talking about Trading Places. We're talking Coming to America, raw, delirious style. You can't, these characters don't work. And Brendan said it himself. I think he said it on Twitter. When he said, I'm the MFing king.
My God.
Heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to hear Akeem to say this. But I mean, even if you look at, like I said, for me, I'm going to move on to just kind of a bit about the actual story as well. I said it to you guys, and I said I was going to bring it up on here. We all called it quite early, and I remember at the beginning of the film, I said, this is, I'm getting a lot of Black Panther vibes from this, right? And not just because it was, like for me, Black Panther was an amazing celebration of like Black and African culture. It wasn't divided by the countries. It was just all of this culture brought together in one film, and it was really showcased. And it seemed that they were really trying to go for that in this, but it wasn't landing for me. But then there were actual, I don't know if you'd call them nods of appreciation, like Lavelle's haircut when he got it done, just being the same as Black Panther's brother. But
yeah, I did notice that.
The actual storyline of the king's illegitimate son that's lived in America his whole life and has no idea he's the heir to a throne, and then he's brought home and challenges essentially for the throne. That is the storyline of Black Panther. So they were actually just mocking and just took the whole storyline, which annoyed me anyway. But my biggest bugbear with this whole film, right, is if we look back at the original, the amount of time and effort that went into building the relationship between Lisa and Akeem throughout that whole film was very apparent. It was very real. You could see why they were, in essence, I suppose, without over emotionalizing it, falling in love. Whereas this one, there was no I hate the term chemistry. It was nothing. You saw like 2 scenes with these people, and you were expected to believe that they were in love. And that's what the whole film was based on. And there was nothing to build that. It was just they've met, she cut his hair, they've kissed, they married forever.
It did seem very rushed. Yeah, because like it does kind of follow. I mean, I watched recently Bill and Ted Face the Music, and that was another film that was like appealing to the nostalgic factor, but also being a playbook of like just retreads of the originals. And I kind of felt that as well, and I felt that exactly the same thing, that when Lavelle, basically the first film is Eddie Murphy plays the kind of fish out of water when he comes to Queens. Lavelle is the same when he comes to Zamunda, because majority of this really is in Zamunda. They have like two or three scenes in America, and they're very short, snappy, and sweet sort of thing. But yeah, I did not feel the chemistry between those two, and I did not like that. Okay, they had like a conversation about American movies, and then they kind of have another, and then it's like, then they're kissing, and it's like, well, I don't want to, marry the woman who will do my bidding. I want to marry you because you challenge me, because she said something that she, it was just, yeah, it just kind of felt very tacked on, very kind of two-dimensional, definitely.
And considering the runtime of the film is nearly 2 hours, there's no need for that to have been rushed. There was plenty of time for that to have been built up properly. I just don't understand where that time's obviously, I mean, it's gone with filler. And when I say filler, I mean in terms of bringing out In Vogue and Salt and Pepper, when you could be telling me a story, you're just rolling out your friends here at this point.
There was a very kind of musical element to this, and I can't remember that being in the first one. Maybe I'm wrong because I haven't seen it for a long time. But was there such a musical element in the first one?
Not necessarily.
No.
But I mean, I can see why they would do that. But again, it doesn't tell the story. It's at this point, it's who can we get in this to boost its popularity. It's like when you watch when you watch the original episodes of Friends and you see Robin Williams and Billy Crystal sitting on the sofa chatting there, and you just think, this has had no bearing. You've literally just picked two people that were probably close proximity. Just said, can you come here and just do a little skit quickly? And feel like there's so much of this film that was just filled up with that, when they could have been telling essentially the same story, which is what we got the first time, but it could have been done so much better.
Well, that's another thing I wanted to ask you guys as well. Like Eddie Murphy's character, Prince Akeem, I think for like about 75% of this movie, he's just playing like some kind of curmudgeon-y old, like, it's not this. I know it's obviously not the same Prince Akeem from the original film. 30 years have gone past, but I'm getting really fed up at the moment of like having these beloved characters from our youth and then turning them into like grumpy old men, or men set in their ways, and then they have to learn a valuable lesson about something or other. What did you guys think about that in general? I know he has the kind of, by the end of the film, he kind of comes to and like has this revelation. But what did you guys think about that?
It's a trope, isn't it? Especially with kind of modern comedy, just like the musical scene at the end. That's a trope. You see it in all, and I don't watch a lot of comedy these days, if I'm honest, because I often will wait for a review, or I prefer stand up, if I'm honest. There's very few comedy movies that I watch these days, and especially like genuine full-blown comedy movie. There's an awful lot of dark comedic movies that are a lot better, but that whole a band at the end, there's always a band playing in a band scene at the end, and all the characters are dancing, and it's a trope. I've seen it so many times. And
I just think Eddie Murphy wants any excuse to get in latex. I think that's what it is, really. I think he just,
the whole kind of film, though, and kind of Mike touched upon it, and so did you. It's the thing. And I put this in our group chat, was what's more disappointing. I think it's fully self-aware of what it is. It knows it's a family movie. It knows it can't live up. It knows it's living up to these tropes. It knows it's playing the stereotypical kind of generic storylines that are now part and parcel of comedy. But they still went along with it. They still made it, and I mean, there's a scene in it as well where it's kind of like, yes, everybody knows when you make a sequel, it's always going to let you down. And it's just like, oh, come on, guys. This is so cheap. Like, you can be self-aware if it's any good.
So, I mean, this is my kind of problem as well, though, because we were mentioning earlier about the fact that, this is a kind of, imagine this is a family sort of film. Yet there's one scene in it, and they do the kind of whole Irishman, de-aging for this segment. So basically, they take the kind of part of Coming to America, the original Coming to America, where Prince Akeem and his assistant, what's his name again? I just went blank. Semi. They're out and about in Queens, and they're trying to look for a kind of a mate for basically Prince Akeem. What they do in this one is that they kind of expand upon that. They de-age the actors kind of thing, and they have like Leslie Jones. They come back to Leslie Jones's apartment, and she basically date rapes him. And I'm just kind of thinking to myself, the whole thing so far has been generally very soft and like, as you said, like he can't say fuck and everything like this, but they have a scene where he basically gets date raped, and it's just kind of like swept under the carpet. Like they make a joke of it, like this happened. He was like, Eddie Murphy's sort of talking about how he saw a wild boar come into the room and everything like this. But I'm just kind of wondering if it was Princess Akeem instead of like, would that, if the same scene happened, what would be, surely there would be more scandal over that. I don't know. I want to get your opinion.
It wouldn't have been allowed. But we all know, rightly or wrongly, there are very different rules to how this, not legally, but in terms of people's morals. I'll give you the prime example just very quickly. Even in this week's news, there was a story of a female teacher, sending illicit photos and videos and having an affair with a 15-year-old boy. Now everyone reads that and thinks, I wish my teacher was like that. But if it was a girl and it was a male teacher, suddenly it becomes the greatest crime that can happen. That's just one example. I'll give you another one, and you can edit it out if you like. I'm probably waffling. Again, watching Come Dine With Me, and there was an overly aggressive middle-aged woman that was always trying to kiss one of the male guests at her party, and it became a running joke amongst everybody. But if that had been flipped and reversed, and it was a 40-year-old man trying to grab a 20-year-old girl, the show would have been stopped, and he'd have been pulled off the show, and probably up on some charges. So it always works on different rules, and unfortunately, even in the movies, it's still exactly the same.
I just think they could have come up with a more imaginative kind of way of explaining why there's an heir, like why Akeem has a son that he doesn't know about, especially in an industry that's supposedly reinvigorated because of Me Too, less than a couple of years ago now. Adopting that kind of humor alongside any depiction of kind of assault is a bit of a huge risk, but I don't know. It just seems like it was kind of played for that particular thing. It was a plot point, and then moving on, on to the next thing. So, yeah, just a bit of a weird one. I just thought, like, if the film had a dark sort of sensibility about it and a dark humor, or like even a kind of raw edge, as a same as the first one, then maybe that could have been. It just seemed a bit weird to me, really, out of everything. But there we go.
It's been really successful, by the way, as well.
It will do, because it's one of those ones that you tapped into people's nostalgia, which already gives you some sort of credibility. But plus the fact, let's be honest, how many people do you know now that don't have an Amazon Prime account?
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially, I want to say, I know this is wrong, but it's like a free movie, and it's like,
It is.
What I would basically say, I don't know if you guys have seen My Name is Dolomite. That's a far better Eddie Murphy vehicle that he did in the last couple of years. I think it was last year or the year before. It was really good. The characters are a lot more three-dimensional. Even it's the same director, and Wesley Snipes is in that as well, but he plays like he once again is chewing scenery sort of thing as this like director. But it's just so much funnier, and it's just so much more heartfelt than this.
Sorry to interrupt. I really enjoyed Wesley Snipes in this. For me, he was almost the saving grace. I actually thought he was one of the ones that did actually make me chuckle, because it's so unlike Wesley Snipes when you consider all of his characters prior to this. When you think of things like Demolition Man, Blade, etc., he's always a very serious, aggressive guy, and he actually.
But he's a funny guy. Even in Demolition Man that you're saying there, like he's a funny bad guy in that. Like some of the things that he says.
Blade exactly the same. He's got some excellent one-liners in both films. But he was I wouldn't say a shining light, but maybe a torch in a dark room for me.
Yeah, I mean personally, I just kind of feel that the kind of jokes, more often the jokes landed flat than they did. Like, did I laugh? I think one of the actual parts where I laughed was a CGI line farting.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
That, you know what I mean? And that's not saying much when, you know, the majority of it is meant to be like the funny dialogue and everything like that. But yeah, that's where I got a kind of a snort kind of that came out. It was like a more of a kind of thing, like, you know, rather than an actual chuckle.
My problem in terms of that is, and I was at this point, my missus was getting quite annoyed because I kept on complaining. I said the funniest things about that film were the clips from the original film. And that's where it falls down. The funniest bits are the bits that I saw 20 years ago.
Well, do you not think,
actually laughed?
do you both not think that, like, if you ever have a kind of sequel and they have to kind of revert to flashbacks of the original film, you've kind of already lost?
Yeah. Well, this I just don't. Other than money, I don't see why they made this. This is I mean, Eddie Murphy must be pretty minted, no? The Spice Girl didn't take that much of his money, did she? Like,
not sure how much Scary took, but
does he need it? Like, they didn't have to do this. It's disappointing.
Money. For me, this is more of a vanity project. You know, like, we can do this, not we should. Just we can do this. And
he did produce this as well. Yeah.
This isn't born out of necessity. This is born out of just, I think, a want for people to still be interested.
I think, I mean, there's
a step from Dr. Dolittle, let's be honest.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, obviously Eddie Murphy went through his kind of family phase when Dr. Dolittle was released, and then you saw, you know, Norbit and everything else like that sort of thing, where he obviously likes dressing up. This is great. Like, he's a funny guy. Like, you know, when he does character pieces, they are hilarious. When, though, as I said, like before, like when you kind of come back to a kind of franchise that, you know, everyone has such fond memories of, then, you know, what can you do but the kind of passing down the mantle, which this film is basically about. This is like, you know, Eddie Murphy's character passing down the mantle to, you know, his son and to his daughters as well. And like, let's be honest as well, like I knew as soon as the film started, when he was battling with the sticks with his 3 young girls, and that it was made apparent that, you know, the law in Zamunda is that, you know, no woman can be, you know, the queen or the ruler basically of the empire. It was like, by the end of the film, the eldest daughter is going to be the kind of queen. Like, that's obvious. So it didn't really subvert my expectations in that. Yeah, so let's get our final thoughts then. Brendan, what are your final thoughts on this?
Should never have been made.
Wow. Definite, strong, bold. And Mike?
My final thoughts on this, and I think I actually said this over the weekend, is I would put this in the same caliber as Nutty Professor 2. It's a film that you could watch, but you will probably only ever watch once, and then that'll be it.
Yeah, I think I said to you guys offline as well that this kind of film reminded me of that kind of like going back to like your high school reunion, and you know, 30 years later, seeing the real funny guy that always kind of was the class clown that kind of cracked a smile in anyone, and then just seeing him like just a shell of his former self. Not because his wife has kind of, you know, taken half his money away or anything like that, just because of the fact that you know, once the laughing stops, it stops. So,
but why? That's the worst thing. I'm going to go in a minute. Why? This is Eddie Murphy's thing. Like, why did they? What if you're gonna like literally censor yourself? Why do it? Why? It's your baby. And remember, it was very much a film that was made. And
I'm going to say because of the money. You know. They were like, look, if we make this a PG-13, more people are going to be able to see it, more money, blah 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 blah. That's my thought.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Or sorry, MFers.
No swearing on this PG-13 channel, Brendan.
Gods.
All right, well, that's it for Coming to America. Not the words, the numbers. Coming to America, just to once again showcase that it's a sequel. What if we have coming 3 America? That won't work.
I won't even. I've got no interest.
Yeah.
If they decide to make another, I've got zero interest. That would be Doctor Dolittle 3, where it's his daughter, and it's straight to DVD, and most people don't even know it exists. That's where that lands.
And Eddie Murphy refuses to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Should have had nothing to do with this one.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, there you go. Out of 10, what would you give it, Mike?
An elevated 3, because like I said, I couldn't give it any less than that because there were funny scenes from the original film.
Brendan?
Yeah, I'll go with that. Mike, I'll go exactly 3 out of 10.
I will be the same as well, actually, because I was thinking 3 or 4, and then I kind of thought to myself, you know, when this film is finished, will I remember it in a week's time? And I thought to myself, no, I won't. So there you go, guys. That's Coming to America. That's been me, Brendan, and Mike. Brendan, sign us out.
Guys, if you want to listen to any of our stuff, your first port of call is YouTube. Just search Inside Your Screen on YouTube. We've got all our podcasts up there. We've got loads of game reviews, loads of movie reviews. Tony specializes in independent game reviews, so check out all that stuff there. If you just want to listen to the audio, we're on all the major podcast platforms. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on SoundCloud, everywhere where you can get a podcast. And if you want to get in contact with us, we are on Twitter at Inside Your Screen with a UR, so at Inside Your Screen. Get in contact and let us know what you thought about Coming to America.
Happy International Women's Day, even though this will be released a day after it. So there you go.
Inside Your Screen.